tirelessly on rescue system. Kim survives a fire at the fertilizer plant thanks to his new skill. He was sent there by an inconsiderate boss who didn't value human life. The protagonist went along with it to expose him to the world and have him removed from his station. Now, the station is free from poor leadership, and our protagonist can focus on what really matters, being ready for future disasters and saving everyone he can. But before we begin, remember that everything you're about to see is a work of fiction. Do not repeat or attempt any violent or dangerous actions you're about to hear. With that said, let's get started with the story. In the protagonist's previous life, over 100 people lost their lives due to the poor infrastructure of a station. Among those people was Master Carl. He had been a victim of the collapse of that station. So, Kim has a new purpose, to prevent this from happening again. He knows it will be difficult, as even the entire fire department wouldn't be enough to handle the strength of the structure. However, his attempts to address the issue have been in vain, as the station refuses to consider inspecting the structure. So, he starts thinking of an alternative. At that moment, his phone rings. It's Sophie calling him. She's on her way to pick him up for a date. Kim knows he has some time to figure out the Chernil station situation, so he gets ready to go out. Since Sophie taught him how to use social media, Kim uses it to get advice on his decisions. In this case, it's about his outfit. After gathering input and considering all the suggestions, he changes into something more comfortable. A little later, Sophie arrives to pick him up. He steps out in comfortable clothes, but isn't sure if they're appropriate for the occasion. From a white car, his date, Sophie, smiles at him. When Kim gets in, he freezes for a moment. He can't help it. She's stunning. Sophie confesses that she missed seeing him, as it's been a while. During their conversation, the protagonist wants to know where they're headed. Sophie tells him it's a surprise. When they arrive, Kim is amazed that their date involves grocery shopping. Then he remembers she's a culinary researcher. She plans to cook something delicious for him. He tells her how much he enjoys going shopping with her. Sophie is busy gathering everything she needs, although it seems like too much. She assures him it'll all make sense later. After shopping, they load the groceries into the car trunk. As they drive to a special place, they talk about why she bought so much food. They're heading to a daycare. She asks if he likes the idea, and our protagonist thinks it's wonderful. There's no way he could feel offended, as he himself grew up in an orphanage. He remembers how, many times, the food was neither enough nor good. He always appreciated the volunteers who brought meals. They seemed like angels to him. They have a pleasant conversation as they drive. When they arrive, they find a place with slightly neglected facilities. Sophie parks the car. The children immediately recognize the car and excitedly rush toward it. They're thinking about the delicious food they'll have today. Kim helps carry the groceries into the daycare, the grain of wheat. He feels a bit emotional, as the place brings back peaceful memories. Time passes, and it's finally time to eat. The protagonist is blown away by how amazing the food tastes. He's grateful that Sophie is a chef. The kids love it when she visits and cooks for them. The children want to know who Kim is. The protagonist jokingly replies that he's Sophie's boyfriend. She blushes slightly and playfully squeezes his shoulder, reminding him he can't call her that just yet. After eating, they do some general cleaning. In the laundry area, they take a quick shower and play together. It's been a spectacular day. The kids don't want them to leave. Sophie promises to come back. The daycare lady thanks them for their kind actions. As night falls, they're in the car, getting ready to leave that beautiful place. Kim has thoroughly enjoyed the date. Suddenly, a little girl approaches the car, earnestly asking Sophie to return and do more activities with them. The protagonist remembers something sinister and asks Sophie to drive away from the area. He recalls a tragic event from his past life. A daycare bus was involved in a terrible accident during a field trip. The bus overturned, leading to a chain of collisions and, eventually, a fire. Night falls, and our protagonist is back home. He wonders if that was the same daycare involved in the accident. He can't remember for sure. The next day at the station, Ken is playing during his free time. Master Carl notices what the crew is up to and realizes Kim is deep in thought again. Our protagonist is still dwelling on the accident. Since he wasn't on duty in his past life, he can't recall all the details. Carl interrupts him, teasing him about Sophie. At that moment, Kim's phone rings. It's her. They talk about their free time and agree to visit the daycare again. This time, it won't just be volunteer work, it'll be a picnic. She mentions that she knows a bus that can take them. The protagonist finally solves his doubt. It is the same daycare. Sophie says she'll go with the kids and invites him to join. The protagonist is happy to know which daycare it is and immediately agrees. With this information, he'll know what to do. Carl wants to know what the excitement is about. The protagonist gets the idea to bring the crew along. They'd be extra help if anything happened. They all get on the bus with the children. Carl wonders if he made the right choice by coming along. Sometime earlier, Sophie meets the crew. They're impressed by the protagonist's girlfriend and secretly praise Kim. Sophie tells Carl where they're headed. The four of them end up at the supermarket. Ken realizes that everything they're buying is for the daycare kids. He tells Kim that Sophie is like an angel. After shopping and loading everything into the car, our protagonist feels nervous because he knows the time is drawing near. Sophie wants everyone to join the picnic. She suggests going with the kids while Kim rides with her. But the protagonist insists on being on the bus to ensure everyone's safety. His excuses for why he needs to be on the bus leave everyone puzzled. Sophie eventually agrees, much to Kim's relief. His crew is a bit intrigued by his attitude. At the daycare, the crew helps load the kids onto the bus. The daycare lady thanks them for volunteering. Kim asks if there are more seats available on the bus, to which she responds positively. Carl is slightly annoyed by Kim's decisions and comments that he should be riding with Sophie. In the end, Carl agrees to stay on the bus. As the bus starts, Carl recalls why it's just the two of them and feels a twinge of regret. Before departing, Kim strictly instructs everyone to wear their seatbelts, including Carl. Carl finds it curious but complies. The driver announces their departure, and Carl ensures everyone is secured. The kids enjoy the ride, as do Ken and Carl. Meanwhile, Kim is driving with Sophie, assuring her that she's done enough and should relax. Suddenly, a car speeds past them, catching Kim's attention. Further down the road, that same car causes a chain reaction crash. The bus overturns, and chaos ensues. Kim and Sophie arrive at the scene, and Kim quickly leaps into action, ordering Sophie to stay in the car. The overturned bus begins to catch fire, and time is running out. Master Carl assesses the situation and realizes there are no severe injuries. He calls Ken to help evacuate the kids quickly. Breaking the reinforced glass is challenging, but Carl uses a specialized hammer to shatter it. As the fire spreads rapidly, Carl hears Kim's voice commanding them to step back. Kim breaks the window and instructs everyone to evacuate immediately. The crew efficiently gets everyone out, with Kim personally ensuring Carl's safety. Once everyone is safe, the firefighters take over the scene. From the roadside, the group watches the aftermath in safety. Kim knows Carl and Ken's efforts were invaluable. It would have been much harder without them. Carl, however, feels confused by the events that seem to revolve around Kim. Sophie approaches Kim, worried about his health. She leans in to check on him, but Kim reassures her he's fine and hugs her with gratitude and love. From a distance, Carl and Ken watch the scene, though Carl seems annoyed for some reason. The following day at the station, Kim is questioned about the rescue. Carl remains curious about Kim's actions but doesn't dwell on it too much. Carl suggests a workout session and everyone agrees. It's been 2 weeks since their last gym session. On the way, Kim walks beside Rose. While their differences have been resolved, things remain slightly awkward between them. Kim considers starting a conversation but realizes it's not the right time yet. At the gym, Carl is about to lift some heavyweights when the alarms go off. The rescue team rushes to their trucks. They receive a call about a cat stuck in a drain for days. Carl jokes about the low stakes and decides to take Kim and Rose along. At the scene, an elderly woman explains that the cat is trapped in a street drain. They remove the grate, and Kim spots the cat's tail. He lowers himself into the drain to quickly grab it, but the cat greets him with sharp claws. Carl chuckles, teasing Kim. Rose pulls out some cat food, surprising Carl. Both Rose and Kim explain that it's the most effective way to lure the cat out. When they place the food near the opening, the cat comes out, and Kim swiftly catches it. Upon closer inspection, Rose realizes it's a kitten, surprising Kim. He didn't know Rose liked cats so much. Back at the station, they discuss what to do with the cat. Kim suggests adopting it as the station's cat. Rose agrees and commits to helping care for it. After some convincing, Carl reluctantly agrees to ask the captain It's a sure yes, and they start dividing responsibilities while bonding over Rose's love for cats. This eases the awkwardness between them. On the day of the station incident, Kim continues to be denied an inspection of the structure. They refuse to consider his warnings, claiming the station is fine, and kick him out again. At the station, Kim can't focus on anything else. Shasi, the cat, approaches, but not for Kim. It's for Rose. Carl teases Kim about the cat's preference. Kim recalls how Master Carl lost his life during that incident. He knows the exact time and place. It's a trauma from his past life. He can't let it happen again. Determined, he leaves the station. His purpose is to save them this time. On the train, he meets a young woman heading to Chernil Station. She receives a message from her boyfriend explaining he'll be late. Kim arrives at Chernil Station. He sneaks into the alarm system, pulls out a smoke canister, and activates it. Our protagonist triggers the alarm, alerting everyone. It's a fire alarm. Kim approaches some passersby to admit that he started the fire and to urge them to evacuate. Meanwhile, at the station, Carl wonders where Kim is. At that moment, the fire alarm goes off and the team rushes to the scene. Everyone evacuates the underground station in a panic. Kim helps guide people to safety. While doing so, he notices that Carl is nearby. The rescue team starts questioning witnesses about the fire, and they mention a man who started it. Carl is furious and again wonders about Kim's whereabouts. As they head to the fire zone, Kim overhears them and approaches, telling them they can't go. Everyone is shocked to see Kim there. He tells them he'll explain everything later. Before Kim can say anything more, a bystander recognizes him and exposes him to the group. Others join in, identifying Kim as the culprit. Kim finds himself in a tough spot as Carl begins questioning him. The protagonist has no choice but to confess that it was just a smoke bomb. He also reveals that he did it because he heard the ceiling creak and knew the station was about to collapse. The team is stunned by Kim's admission. Some think he's crazy, but Carl is intrigued by his actions. Nearby, someone on the phone reveals there's still one person left inside the station. Kim heads back to rescue the girl. Suddenly, a massive tremor shakes the area. Kim knows something terrible is about to happen. On a train approaching Chernil Station, the girl on the phone from earlier is among the passengers. Suddenly, the ceiling collapses. Panic and screams erupt everywhere. From a different angle, the pavement can be seen crumbling. The rescue team is shocked by the magnitude of the disaster. Kim's rescue system activates, telling him to save as many lives as possible. Kim becomes enraged, thinking he had already evacuated everyone. He grabs the man who was on the phone with the girl and demands to know why there are still people inside. The man explains that another train was on its way. Kim has to act fast and starts thinking of a plan. Behind him, Carl alerts all stations, and the rest of the team prepares for action. From a wide shot, the entire street is in ruins. Carl orders an excavator and plans to wait for it. Kim doesn't like the idea, recalling that in his past life, waiting for machinery delayed the rescue by 15 days. He knows starting now could save many more lives. Kim decides to go alone. Carl sighs, knowing he can't let him go by himself. Kim finds a path, leaving the others puzzled but realizing it's the right choice. After some time, they arrive at the metro station, which is buried under debris. Kim doubts the safety of the chosen route. However, Kim is confident thanks to his skills. Carl recognizes Kim's talent and decides to trust him. They begin drilling through the debris, moving stones and other materials. After a grueling effort, Carl notices something strange. Everyone is exhausted from the hard work, except Kim, who's doing twice as much without tiring. Rose is concerned that Kim is overexerting himself and warns him to slow down to avoid future consequences. Understands his determination but also wants to protect him. Carl examines the rubble and realizes they can see inside the station. Kim gets excited and everyone finds renewed energy to continue. Carl wants everyone to proceed cautiously, but before they can move, the debris collapses onto him. It's said that in moments of extreme danger, your life flashes before your eyes. This is Kim's experience as he recalls how Carl defended him when two colleagues criticized him behind his back, showing that Carl's loyalty was honorable. Kim demonstrates his extraordinary abilities by sprinting at incredible speed toward Carl, grabbing him and throwing him toward the others. Everyone watches in shock as the debris buries Kim. In a panic, they want to rescue him but can't stay in the dangerous area for long. Kim survives thanks to his protective shield, but it's running out of power. He regrets putting Carl in danger, as his primary goal was to prevent the past from repeating itself. Luckily, this time he succeeded, but now he must get out quickly. Meanwhile, a girl, Dana, realizes her phone works but has no signal. Scared, she looks for help and encounters horrifying scenes of the accident. She finds others in need of assistance. Together, they manage to free a man whose legs are trapped under debris. Despite their efforts, the man's legs are injured. A soldier among them suggests finding possible exits, but the man insists they stay with him. Dana gets frustrated with the man's arrogance, but ultimately decides they all need to move forward. As they discuss, a large rock falls nearby, revealing Kim. Everyone is shocked. The protagonist is confused, realizing he must have fallen during the collapse. The injured man, Robert, criticizes Kim, blaming him for their predicament. Dana argues with Robert, defending Kim. The soldier calms them and asks Kim how they'll get out. Kim uses his skills to identify an exit, but they'll need to clear some debris. He divides the group, sending the injured to a safer train while asking the others to help him clear the way. Dana, who admires firefighters, volunteers to help. They work tirelessly, inspired by Kim's strength and speed, which give them hope. After some time, a soldier notices a light shining through the debris. Kim orders the injured to be brought to the exit. However, Robert, with his arrogant attitude, tries to push his way out first, ignoring the rules. A heated argument ensues, and Robert's actions cause him to slip and fall against the rubble. Kim notices a falling piece of debris heading toward Robert and tries to save him but is too late. The rubble takes Robert's life. Kim takes a moment of silence to mourn his failure to save him. Dana consoles Kim, assuring him it's not his fault. Suddenly, cracking sounds echo, signaling the structure above is about to collapse. Kim warns everyone to make minimal movements to prevent further damage. He explains that another collapse would worsen their situation. They can't wait long for rescuers because they're running out of food, water, and, most critically, oxygen. Kim devises a plan to lead the group downward instead of upward, seeing it as their only viable escape route. Meanwhile, Carl and the rescue team push forward, despite Rose reminding them of the risks. Carl's faith in Kim is unwavering. News reports state that it's been 2 days since the disaster occurred, highlighting the danger the rescuers face. Sophie, deeply worried, arrives at the scene. Her father, a powerful figure, sends a special rescue team but tries to convince Sophie to leave. She refuses, insisting on staying until Kim is safe. Carl overhears voices from the debris, confirming survivors are still alive. The rescue team doubles their efforts. Inside the station, Kim leads his group toward a train, where they find more survivors. They share water and rest briefly before continuing. Back on the surface, Sophie pleads with her father to do more. As the special rescue team takes over, Carl and his crew are ordered to leave, but Carl refuses, determined to find Kim. Rose suddenly hears a faint voice calling for help. The special team works alongside Carl to break through the rubble. Inside, Kim, exhausted and on the verge of collapse, encourages Dana to call for help. Her cries are heard by the rescuers. Early the next morning, Kim regains consciousness, carried out by Carl and Rose. He wakes up in the hospital, where Sophie is waiting by his bedside. Sophie's father enters, visibly upset, giving Kim an ultimatum: his dangerous profession or his relationship with Sophie. He tells him he'll find him a more decent job. He leaves the room and runs into Carl and Can, who were standing behind the door. Everyone experiences the awkward moment, and Carl apologizes. After Sophie's parents leave, Carl and Can ask the protagonist about his decision. While eating an apple, they chat with him and give him some advice based on their experiences. Ultimately, the decision is Kim's to make. As evening falls, Kim goes out to buy 2 coffees. He approaches Sophie's father, who is watching the sunset. Sophie's father assumes Kim has already made his decision, although Kim has come to talk to him. Kim addresses him respectfully as father and hands him a coffee. He tells him that he doesn't care how he sees him. He's not planning to leave his profession. The next day, Kim is back at the station. Everyone is happy to see him fully recovered. Kim tries to feed Shishi, but the cat still doesn't seem to like him. Carl approaches Kim with a couple of things to share. First, there will be no disciplinary committee. He explains that Kim's actions saved many people, and his efforts have been recognized. Kim is just happy that everyone is alive and together. Second, they want to promote him to the special rescue team. It's a position anyone would want, but Kim isn't interested. He tells them he likes being where he is. Carl counters that it's a high salary and the team consists of the best in the field. What Kim truly thinks is that it took time for the group to adapt to him. Some initially despised him for not following orders. Now it's different. They trust and respect him. He has no intention of starting over again. As an excuse, he says he has to stay because of Shishi. The team teases him, saying the cat doesn't even like him yet. Ken asks about Sophie. Kim recalls his conversation with her father. At first, Sophie's father was upset because the protagonist didn't accept his condition. Kim told him he wasn't planning to leave Sophie or his profession. They argued over their differences. Her father didn't want her to suffer because of him or anyone else. Kim made him understand their shared concern for Sophie. He wants to take care of her and do what he does best, be a firefighter, to protect his loved ones. Sophie's father reflects on Kim's thoughts and begins to like him more. Returning to Kan's question, Kim reveals he's planning to marry her. Everyone is shocked by the news. Kim recalls how Sophie's father decided to make peace with him. He said he'd be watching Kim because he still doesn't trust him fully. The team wants to know everything about the wedding and how Kim will organize it while being busy abroad. The protagonist, confused, doesn't understand what Ken is referring to. Carl hadn't yet mentioned the letter that had arrived. He tells Kim it's on his desk. Kim checks it and realizes it's an invitation to a very famous entertainment program. Sophie is thrilled when she hears about it. They discuss it at a park. Initially, Kim had refused, but they managed to convince him. She's happy that her boyfriend will be on a show. Carl told him it could inspire people to value the profession if he appeared on the show. Thanks to Kim, firefighter's image in Chernobyl has improved. Kim is at the airport. He's saying goodbye to his girlfriend. He's nervous about what's to come. He checks out his new look thanks to Sophie styling his hair. A young woman approaches him. She's the program's representative. She guides him to the filming location. He sees there are many cameras. They want to film him right there for the opening and continue filming elsewhere. The director is busy, and Kim doesn't know where to wait. He realizes what's happening when he hears the fans screaming. It's because of Chris. He can't believe he's with such famous people. Director Liz introduces them. Kim introduces himself to Chris and extends his hand to shake. Chris just ignores him and walks away. Kim notices a group of people he's only ever seen on TV. They recognize Kim and immediately greet him. They thank him for being part of the program. Kim blushes, embarrassed they know him. Adding to the excitement, beautiful models from the show arrive, and Kim assumes they're high schoolers. Chris is with them, and Kim overhears Chris criticizing them. One of the girls notices Kim and runs to greet him. She introduces herself as Lily and thanks him for his heroic actions. The other two girls join in and introduce themselves as Bethany and Megan. Chris, left behind, is offended by the attention Kim is getting. He starts hating Kim right away. In the bathroom, Chris vents to his assistant. He criticizes Kim, saying he's not a real firefighter, that he's poor and ridiculous. He thinks Kim shouldn't be there and plans to embarrass him. Everyone boards the plane and starts settling into their seats. Lily sees the protagonist approaching and wants him to sit next to her. The protagonist heads toward Lily. Suddenly, Chris bumps into Kim and takes his seat. Kim, a little confused by his attitude, decides to ignore him. The director makes an announcement on the plane. They'll divide the participants into groups for the program. Each team will consist of 4 members. Lily is thrilled to be teamed with Kim, while Chris is jealous. Everyone begins getting acquainted with their teams. Liz informs them they can rest because the show will begin as soon as they arrive. After the flight, they arrive in Vientiane, the capital of Laos. Everyone is being introduced by the program. They're in the jungle of this capital. The goal is to reach the final destination using only a map and survival skills. Each team is given the same map. Liz informs them that the competition has already started. Everyone is shocked by the announcement and realizes they need to hurry. Some are overwhelmed by the complexity of the area. Chris's group strategizes how to navigate, but Chris already knows the map by heart. He had threatened an assistant into breaking the rules and sharing the information. The assistant warned him the participants have limited knowledge and shouldn't cheat. Chris threatened to quit the program if he wasn't told, so the assistant eventually gave in. Liz had also told them the winning team would get an extravagant business trip buffet. They're excited but unsure how to read the map. Chris impresses them, saying he can guide them thanks to his soldier training. The group is pleased. Chris imagines the look on Kim's face when he finds out they're last. Meanwhile, Kim's group watches as Chris's team takes the lead, assuming they'll finish last. But at that moment, Kim's system activates and shows him a better detailed minimap of the area. He takes charge and leads them. On the other hand, Chris's group is getting tired, although they believe they're first, thanks to Chris's confidence. He's sure he'll arrive before Kim's team. When they reach the meeting point, they find Kim and his group already there. The cameras greet them warmly. Chris is surprised and furious. Everyone comments on how quickly Kim's group arrived. Kim says it's because he's a firefighter. Chris grows angrier and more envious. The next challenge begins. Liz tells them they have to build a shelter. She hands out tools to each team. Some participants are worried because they don't know how to build one. Lily tells Kim her arm feels numb. On the other hand, Chris sees this as his chance to prove he's the best. He believes he can outdo everyone because of his military experience. Everyone works hard, and they show their shelters at the end. Chris surprises everyone with a beautiful rustic cabin. He thinks no one will beat him this time. When they check the other group's result, they're amazed by the quality of the construction. Everyone is blown away. It surpasses the work of many architects. Chris realizes what the other team has built. He's frustrated and can't believe it, and so it goes with every challenge. Our protagonist demonstrates extraordinary survival skills, outperforming them in each one. His team is grateful to have Kim. The production team is thrilled with the material they've captured. They now have enough footage for several days. It starts raining, and Liz tells everyone it's time to return. Time passes, and all participants are on their way back. They decide to rest under a large tree. Lily tells the protagonist she feels dizzy. She wants to take a break. Kim feels a bit nervous but doesn't know why. He was about to ask her something when Chris interrupts. He tells Lily to join him for some shots he wants to film. She's hesitant because she's tired but agrees. He takes her to a waterfall, a beautiful location. He wants to create a memorable moment, but instead, his actions make her uncomfortable. In the distance, a thunderclap is heard. The director decides to head back with the group. The protagonist goes to retrieve Lily and Chris. Chris continues demanding more from Lily, which she refuses, making her increasingly uncomfortable. Kim arrives at that moment. The difference in emotions is evident when he shows up. He wants them to return immediately, sensing the storm is dangerous. Chris thinks it's about ego and refuses. He doesn't want her to leave with Kim, claiming it's his filming session. When he grabs Lily by the arm, she slips and falls due to his force. Everyone witnesses the scene caused by Chris's poor behavior. Lily is left unconscious on the ground. Liz and the rest of the participants are waiting. They notice only Chris and the cameraman have returned. She grows increasingly worried and asks why an ambulance was called. Chris is too disappointed in himself to speak, so the cameraman explains, informing them that Lily had a collapse. Everyone is shocked and anxious. He also explains that Kim is carrying her on his shoulders to meet the ambulance. Megan and Bethany are in shock, and everyone asks many questions about what happened. Chris feels guilty because he was the one who caused her to fall. In another scene, the protagonist is running with Lily on his shoulders, remembering the main symptoms of a stroke. He knows she's shown many of these symptoms in the past. He has less than 5 hours to prevent something serious. His abilities allow him to foresee accidents, so he keeps running. However, because of the rain and mud, the protagonist slips. But he doesn't let her hit the ground, cushioning her fall with a quick, effective movement. He gets up, injured, and continues his mission to save her. The ambulance is at the jungle entrance, discussing whether the situation is critical or not. In the distance, they see the protagonist with Lily. He arrives, pleading for his friend's health, then collapses from exhaustion. Kim wakes up in a scene that feels familiar. It's a burning building. He enters, searching for someone to save. He finds 2 people in the distance of the room. When he gets closer to help, he realizes it's himself from before he died. He's surprised to see him, but even more shocked by what this Kim tells him. He says that the Kim in this life is trying too hard to save others, losing his essence as a person. He now seems like a human who can't die. He wants to save the person trapped under the debris, but when he grabs their hand, he realizes it's himself again. Returning to the core of the message, the protagonist regains consciousness and finds himself in a hospital hallway. After some time, Kim recovers. He visits Lily in her room. He sees Megan and Bethany taking care of her. Liz approaches him to thank him for his heroic actions. They realized the problem in time and were able to operate on her. Kim modestly says it's just his job. The girls notice the protagonist is there. They immediately thank him for what he did. They feel relieved that everything turned out fine. Chris watches the scene from a distance, but he doesn't feel anger or resentment toward Kim. Outside the hospital, Kim and Liz are talking. They discuss the problem that occurred and the possible consequences it could have. Kim agrees to avoid similar situations due to the criticism the show might face. She informs him that his flight home is scheduled for the next day, the day after his trip. At the airport, Kim heads home, but a man approaches him from behind and asks to talk to him. A moment later, Kim finishes telling his girlfriend everything that happened during his trip. They agree to meet later. The protagonist gets ready to go to the station. When he arrives, everyone greets him warmly. They ask him about what happened and joke about how Kim never stops being a firefighter. Kim greets Shi-si, although she still doesn't seem to want much physical contact. They ask if he got autographs from the models he was with. The protagonist had forgotten because of everything that happened, but he introduces them to someone else. It's Chris, who walks into the station. He introduces himself to everyone. He reflects on the guilt he felt regarding what happened, caused by his envy and anger. He also remembers how Kim had to step up during that moment of crisis, and how Kim handled everything without blaming him. Chris expresses gratitude that his coworker Lily was saved. He admires the skills of the firefighters and takes them more seriously. He respects Kim for that. Chris is at the station to share some news. He's going to become the station's public relations ambassador. The next day, the crew is on a rescue mission. They're running through the forest. They split up to look for a man who got lost. When they find him, they report his location. Everyone gathers to bring him home. Suddenly, a cameraman appears, interviewing the crew. They feel a bit overwhelmed by the unexpected filming. Back at the station, Chris explains it's for a documentary. He introduces the cameraman who will be filming them all the time. The crew wonders if this is a good idea. Chris wants to raise public awareness about firefighters. The crew isn't entirely comfortable with the decision. In a program meeting, the team is informed of the importance of capturing good footage and filming everything. They're shown the equipment and how the documentary will work. Kim knows these documentaries aren't like entertainment shows. The cameramen introduce themselves as Richard and Barry. They're grateful for this opportunity. They admit they're fans of Kim. The director interrupts their excitement. He explains they'll be filmed most of the time, and they should continue working as usual. However, the crew knows that a firefighter's life isn't exciting every day. When the emergency alarm sounds, often it's for simple issues, like a locked door, noisy neighbors who won't let others sleep, lost pets that weren't really lost. Still, everything was recorded. On the way back to the station, Barry comments that people should be more mindful about their calls. Kim prefers these minor issues over major accidents, although the cameramen seem to downplay these calls. Richard hopes for more dangerous events. Carl and Rose feel uncomfortable with their comments. Rose confronts them about their remarks. Just then, an emergency is reported. They immediately return to action. The chief asks for details about the emergency. It's a multi-vehicle accident, and one of the vehicles is carrying petroleum, so there's a risk of a fire. The cameramen are excited about a real emergency. Carl finds their enthusiasm uncomfortable. They almost arrive at the scene of the accident. As they prepare to act, Kim's system activates, informing him that he has only 10 minutes to save people. The protagonist can't believe he has so little time. From a wide shot, we see the events of the accident. The crew gets out and starts working. They head toward the danger zone when the protagonist bumps into Richard. Richard got in Kim's way trying to get good shots. The protagonist gets furious and makes it clear. 6 minutes remain, and he must get out before it's too late. The cameramen think the firefighters are rude, but we know they're the ones being reckless. The team splits up to rescue people. Richard and Barry no longer want to film but watch as the protagonist performs his maneuvers. They consider it excellent material for the show. Meanwhile, Kim is rescuing a man trapped and injured in a truck. The cameramen are thrilled with their footage. Richard notices a spark flashing nearby. There's a small explosion. A piece of debris flies past him, narrowly missing his life. The firefighters witness the explosion while evacuating others. Kim knows the big explosion is imminent, and he orders everyone to leave first. Richard collapses in shock and can't move, having just seen his life flash before his eyes. Barry tries to help him, but he doesn't respond, so Barry leaves him. Richard watches the protagonist approach with the gravely injured man. The man urgently needs medical attention. Kim can't ignore the cameraman kneeling in front of the truck. Only 20 seconds remain. He was about to get out but is now in serious trouble. Richard doesn't move even with his life at risk. The protagonist has no choice but to grab him and run. The timer hits 0 and the truck explodes. From a distance, everyone sees the truck burst into flames. However, Kim survives because he activated his protective dome, saving himself and the two people, who are unconscious. He informs the chief that some debris saved them, and urgently calls for an ambulance. Barry approaches, relieved that his partner is safe. But Kim is furious and demands to know why they acted recklessly. Back at the station, the team apologizes for their actions the previous night. Chief Carl bans any further filming due to the incident. In the production studio, the team edits the footage they've captured. Barry is excited by what they see. Richard is still consumed with remorse over his recklessness. He wants to delete his recording. The rest of the team is confused. The producer arrives at the studio, saying the project is officially over, until he sees the video of the incident and changes his mind. Richard no longer wants to continue, but the producer plans to call the head executive. Time passes. Sophie arrives at the station with a beautifully decorated basket. The crew is surprised to see her so early. Kim approaches her, and she explains it's a holiday, so she left early. She couldn't wait until Kim was off. She wanted to see him right then. Carl watches their romantic moment from afar, making a fuss about it. They talk about taking a break just for the two of them, traveling abroad. It's a bit sudden, but they want to do it. The destination is Thailand. Everything seems fine until the protagonist recalls the tragedy in Thailand from his past life. A tsunami that devastated much of the country. His friends tease him good-naturedly about the trip, although Sophie is excited to go with him. Meanwhile, the protagonist is haunted by the tragedies he's experienced. He doesn't want her to go through something like that. Sophie notices Kim's expressions and feels a bit uneasy, but he quickly reassures her, saying they'll go, though he's a little worried. Back at home, the protagonist thinks about the tsunami from his past life, which claimed many lives. If he goes, he plans to help save as many people as possible. The protagonist checks the system and sees nothing unusual, so he's determined to help with this future disaster. He keeps walking, thinking about how he'll do it. At the apartment, Kim calls his girlfriend. He tells her the trip will involve a lot of work. She can't believe Kim prioritizes work even during his free time. He tries to make up for it with a dinner invitation. As the conversation progresses, the tension grows. Kim realizes she's upset about his decision. Sophie breaks down in tears. She can't handle how her boyfriend sees life solely as work. He tries to fix the situation, but it's too late. Sophie breaks up with him. The protagonist didn't expect this reaction. We see the beautiful beaches of Thailand. Everyone seems to be enjoying them except Kim. Kim sits at a restaurant table, lamenting. The father walks by with his daughter. The little girl notices him and realizes he misses Sophie. She wants to sit with him, but her father doesn't allow it. Frustrated, Kim wonders who these people are to comment on his relationship. He realizes they're two foreigners. It surprises him because they speak English fluently. He confused them with locals. He approaches to listen to them. The man notices and invites him to join them for a meal. They talk about why they're fluent in the language, and about Sophie. Both remember her name. Kim doesn't believe total strangers know Sophie. The man points out his girlfriend sitting across the restaurant. The protagonist is paralyzed at the sight of her. It is her. From another perspective, we see the waves beginning to rise, heading toward the beach. Meanwhile, the protagonist can't believe she took the flight. He didn't want her to travel. She turns and notices him. There's a bit of tension in the air. Kim immediately goes to Sophie. She also leaves the restaurant. He grabs her arm. He wants to explain why he acted so abruptly. He confesses that a tsunami is coming soon. Both she and the foreigners are shocked by this information. He explains it will happen sooner than she thinks. She knows he's not lying about this. He asks her to trust him and move as far away as possible. The waves are already approaching. He just wants her to be safe and explains that he wants to save as many lives as possible. The atmosphere darkens as animals sense the impending disaster. Kim continues talking to Sophie when, They notice the waves are receding. The farther the water goes, the larger the wave. There's no time to lose. He gets Sophie's attention. He tells her to head for the tower in the distance. He promises to catch up with her soon. She starts running without hesitation. Now he must make sure everyone else knows. The man he met earlier is already calling local authorities. The problem now is that even though the alarm is sounding, people on the beach can't comprehend the magnitude of what's coming. Kim needs to warn them, so he grabs a megaphone and announces the evacuation. Everyone laughs because they don't understand. It's almost pointless as the wave draws closer. The foreigner helps by translating. This is a big help as everyone understands what's coming. Kim notices a massive wave in the distance chasing them. Everyone panics and runs. Kim points out where to go, hoping someone understands. He stays behind, determined not to let anyone lose their life. Meanwhile, at the Chernil fire station, Rose is doing her morning paperwork. She checks the news and sees reports of the Thailand tsunami. She immediately tells the others. Everyone is worried, but they're even more concerned when they learn it's Kim's travel destination. There's not much they can do from there, which frustrates Carl the most. Meanwhile, in Thailand, all the residents are running for their lives. Kim has gear on his back and is heading to the tower he told Sophie about. He hopes it's not too late. When he arrives, he sees that the building's entrance is congested with people. He makes his way inside. Wherever he looks, there are panicked people. A door blocks people's passage. They're trying to open it but can't, until the protagonist arrives and breaks it open with one blow, allowing everyone to enter the building's terrace. He finds Sophie. She feels relieved and calms down when she sees him safe. He tells her he has to go back. There are still many people to save. He approaches the edge of the terrace and watches as people are still running. People are being overtaken by the waves. She and everyone with her also see it. Sophie doesn't want him to go down. It's too dangerous. Kim is in shock, unable to achieve the goal he traveled for. At the station, they try to contact him, but it's almost useless. The signal doesn't respond. They can only make sure the help they requested from the station arrives. The teacher approaches the chief. He wants to join the rescue team assisting Thailand. The chief refuses, explaining that the government already sent a special rescue team. Carl insists he'll go even if he has to pay for it himself. The chief informs him they can't allow it because if something happens, he'll be held responsible. Carl persists, saying that even with just 2 people it would be fine. The chief realizes the teacher is doing this for Kim. He tries to make him understand that it's irrational to expose himself like that. The protagonist is trapped in a waking nightmare. He cannot accept that he can't save everyone. He believes it's his fault if he doesn't. He thinks he should be stronger. Sophie brings him back to reality. She's worried about him. Kim seems to be out of his mind. At that moment, a system reveals itself to Kim, telling him he has to save as many people as possible. He realizes there are still many to rescue, even those already in the water. He doesn't want to worry Sophie, but she surprises him by asking him to do the job. He feels happy that she understands him. Kim thanks her and promises he'll return soon, so he heads to one of the lower floors. Looking out a window, he sees it's more complicated than it seems. From there, he spots a man clinging to a car, crying for help. He reaches out his hand to the man. Luckily, the man grabs it and with some effort he rescues him. He realizes it's the foreigner from earlier. The man asks him to save his daughter. He reveals that she's missing. He remembers they were running toward the building when a man pushed her so hard she got injured. He stopped for a moment to check on his daughter's condition. And before he knew it, the wave was upon them, sweeping away everything in its path. He lost sight of his daughter and doesn't know where she is. Kim notices the wound on his leg and applies first aid. Before he can finish, the man grabs his hand and begs him to find her. The foreigner believes she's still alive. He tells Kim he can take care of himself. He just needs his daughter. So, Kim finds a new purpose: to save the man's daughter. From another perspective, we see how complex the situation is. Kim doesn't waste time and jumps from the building to a nearby roof. He uses his ability to identify people. He spots a small figure in a tree and suspects it's her, so he runs toward it. Before he can get far, the roof of that house explodes. With his risk detection ability, he identifies the dangers ahead. Kim is in a tight spot and must act immediately. At that moment, some people are on the roof of a structure, begging for help. He notices they are about to collide with some dangerous debris. Before that happens, Kim rescues them in a leap like a superhero. He He takes them to a building's terrace. They're grateful to be alive. Kim wastes no time and keeps moving. They're stunned by the phenomenon that saved them. The protagonist simply keeps going without explaining anything. He knows every second counts. He's running in the girl's direction when he comes across a woman clinging to a lamppost. It's possibly risky for her to stay there much longer. Kim leaps and grabs her hand. He promises himself that no one will die in front of him. He saves the people, leaving them in a safe place for rescue. They recognize him. He's the firefighter from Chernil Station. He doesn't have a moment to lose and leaves without explaining anything. He activates his life detection ability again and notices the little girl is no longer in the tree. On the Padong Tower, Sophie waits. She knows it will get dark soon. She's waiting for the rescue team. She wonders how Kim knew there would be a tsunami. She worries about his health. She knows he'll be fine. She hears the people around her screaming. She turns to see what's happening. She quickly discovers the tower is shaking. Meanwhile, Kim still doesn't know where the girl is. A system warns Kim that due to excessive use of his abilities, he'll have to wait a few hours before using them again. From that moment, Kim is back to being a regular firefighter without special abilities. So he runs and jumps into a building. He realizes it's a mall. He begins searching for Jessica, shouting her name as he moves. He starts thinking about where she might be. He looks at the possible places she could be. He keeps shouting her name and moves forward. From a vending machine full of stuffed animals, he hears something. He gets a little scared, letting his imagination run wild for a moment. He keeps moving when Jessica emerges from among the stuffed animals. She remembers him well and comes out to reunite with our protagonist. She excitedly tries to guide him to a specific place. She says she wants to get on an inflatable she saw. Kim gets a little angry because that's why she didn't find a safe place. She tells him the last time she saw her father, he was very injured and wanted the inflatables to go rescue him. Kim retracts his thoughts. She comments that thanks to learning some survival tips from a book, her arm doesn't hurt much. She asks for his help with the situation. She knows there are sharp things outside that could damage the inflatable. Kim gives her hope, telling her that her father is alive. She'll see him very soon. She gets excited to see him again. Kim tells her to come with him to the roof. The situation keeps getting worse. They're in the store when a strange sound disturbs Kim. From the movement of things, he realizes it's a collision. Without thinking twice, he heads for the emergency exit. The door doesn't want to open. Jessica screams as something falls behind them. From a high point in another building, a young woman is recording the incident. She finds Sophie crying. The young woman wants to know what's wrong and if she's safe. Sophie tells her that her boyfriend is still down there. The young woman tries to comfort her, but Sophie imagines the worst. She feels terrible for Sophie. At that moment, she hears the sound of helicopter blades. It's the rescue teams. Everyone is happy that reinforcements have arrived to rescue them. She approaches to ask them to help the protagonist. She realizes it's Carl who's come to the rescue. Kim wakes up among debris. We see that he's been pierced by a metal bar, and the water level is rising. Kim, in a dazed state, sees Jessica climbing a pile of debris. Jessica grabs a loose piece and falls to the ground. Kim wants to help her, but he notices the bar piercing him. The system informs him that he has only 30 minutes before he can use his abilities again. His body doesn't respond, and to the protagonist's bad luck, a torrent of water floods everything. Both end up floating in the room. Kim gasps for air, screaming in pain. What weighs on him more is that the girl isn't okay, and she isn't. The force of the water pulls her under. Kim has no other choice. He has to save her. He breaks the metal bar with another piece of metal in one strike. He dives in and goes after her. When they reach the surface, he tries to calm her down. Despite all his pain, the protagonist tells her they must dive again to escape. She complies and holds her breath. Both dive, and the protagonist sees an exit in the depths. Kim is badly injured but cannot give up. They escape through a window. Outside, they get on an improvised wooden raft. Jessica notices how badly Kim looks. The protagonist is losing consciousness and sinking. Jessica wants to save him but isn't strong enough. Suddenly, a saving hand grabs him. It's Rose who's arrived to rescue him. Some time ago, we find ourselves at the station's office. We see Carl looking a bit stressed out. He can't wait any longer. He has to go to Thailand. Carl is determined to make it happen, even if it means going on his own. Before leaving, he bumps into the the boss himself, who asks where he's headed. Carl bends the truth a little. The boss knows he's planning to go to Thailand and gets angry with Carl for wanting to defy direct orders. Suddenly, they are informed about an emergency they need to respond to. At first, Carl refuses. The boss gets even more upset with him, saying he's not sick and has no excuse to skip this mission. He insists that Carl goes. Carl, left with no choice, reluctantly agrees. He asks where the incident is, and the boss reveals that it's in Thailand. Everyone is stunned. From the helicopter, we see Carl and Sophie. She's visibly worried about him. Carl tries to calm her down, assuring her that her boyfriend is strong, but he can tell she's genuinely anxious. She can't hide her frustration with these situations. Meanwhile, Rose is fighting to save both our protagonist and the little girl's life. She refuses to let her friend give up and offers Kim a glimmer of hope, helping him understand that his work is already making a difference. Her words immediately calm him. At the hospital, Sophie is seen organizing her thoughts about her boyfriend. In the meantime, in his room, the protagonist wakes up to see the system notifying him that his recovery time is over and his level has increased. Now, he can heal faster. He's amazed at how effective his new ability is and gets off the bed completely healthy. He can't believe he has to continue the mission. As he leaves the room, he runs into Sophie. Both are surprised to see each other. She wants to know why he's leaving in such a rush. He explains that there are still people to save and reassures her that his injuries weren't severe, so there's no need to worry. She accepts his decision, which shocks him. He can't believe she's not more concerned. He asks if she's sure about this, and she calmly tells him once again that he can go without worrying about her, even though deep down she is worried. Kim is taken aback by her response. From that moment on, he dedicates himself to rescuing the remaining people, eventually returning home. In Thailand, he becomes the center of attention on social media. A few days later, a swarm of reporters floods the station. Kim, always trying to avoid attention, is spotted dressed in a bear costume. The reporters recognize it's him and chase after him. He runs to escape the paparazzi. At the office, Ken is busy working when suddenly Kim appears, scaring him. Ken quickly realizes it's Kim again, still in the bear costume. The protagonist complains that answering questions is no longer fun. The boss interrupts, wanting to know if the protagonist has returned. He informs him that an important person wants to see him. Nervous but excited, Kim heads to the office, curious to find out who it is. It's the man from the incident in Thailand. Kim is surprised to see him again, much more elegant now. The man introduces himself. His name is Mike, a successful businessman. Kim asks him the reason for his visit. Mr. Mike asks about his living situation and if he lives alone. He explains that he came to deliver a gift as a token of gratitude for saving his life and his daughter's. He knows nothing can fully repay that, but he's doing it from the heart. He gives him a beautiful gift from his daughter, something she doesn't do for just anyone. And he also gives him a gift. It's the deed to a house. At the station, the guys are impressed by Kim's gift. He tells them who Mike is and they chat about it. Then they talk about Sophie. They think everything is fine and that they can get married now. But the protagonist confesses the truth. Things aren't going well with her. Carl recalls noticing she seemed distant but didn't pay much attention. Kim says he didn't give Sophie the attention she deserved as his girlfriend. He knows she feels bad about all the worries he's caused. Ken was about to give his opinion, but luckily Carl stopped his reckless mouth. Kim confesses they haven't talked since they returned from the trip, and he's unsure if it'll work out. Ken grabs his phone and starts writing her a message. The protagonist freaks out with nerves. Ken shows him the message, ready to send it. He tries to stop her, and like something out of a comic, the cat sends it. Everyone freezes at the action. Kim is mortified. Ken admits she wasn't going to send it, but it's too late. She read it. She replied, agreeing to meet a few days later. A bit awkward, everyone leaves. Kim wants the ground to swallow him. Carl advises him to say the right thing. The day arrives for their meeting. Kim is dressed sharply, holding a bouquet of flowers. He's nervous but ready to see her. He arrives 20 minutes early and takes a deep breath. A system catches him off guard, telling him he has to save a motorcyclist from a drunk driver. He sees the scene and must act immediately. He drops the bouquet and rushes to them. The next morning, Sophie is cooking at the restaurant. Her friend shows her what the protagonist did the night before. She's thrilled because Kim is now a rescue celebrity. Sophie, on the other hand, thinks it's not so bad. The night before, the protagonist rescued the motorcyclist from the drunk driver. Though the person in the car was badly injured, he took them to the hospital. He remembers Sophie was waiting for him, so he rushes off. Kim can't believe he's about to lose his only chance to win her back. At the same time, Sophie is asking for the bill. She leaves the restaurant a little disappointed, but Kim arrives before she goes. He explains why he was late. She looks at him, worried about him again. She suggests they each go home and rest. He refuses outright. He wants to be with her. Kim knows he looks terrible, but he doesn't want to leave without saying what he planned. Before he can speak, she thanks him for his great work. Our protagonist regrets and confesses how selfish he's been with her. He reveals his thoughts of guilt and nostalgia for not dedicating the time he wants to her. He thanks her for staying with him despite everything. She gets a bit nervous. She asks Kim if he's going to break up with her. The protagonist feels the tension. He knows that's not the reason for the meeting. She apologizes because she feels she's not prepared for all these scenarios. She remembers how, during that disaster in Thailand, she talked to Master Carl on the way back, and he asked her one thing: to take care of Kim. He knows Kim is stubborn and breaks the rules, always risking his life. He believes that with Sophie's help, he'll improve. She offers some opinions to help ensure everyone around him doesn't worry too much. She knows it's something only she can gradually change about the protagonist. As she recalls how she agreed in Thailand to Kim's requests, even when he was injured, Kim understands why Sophie acted this way. She only wants his well-being. They apologize to each other for what happened and for the misunderstandings. They become the happy couple they once were. After that, they go out to eat for the rest of the night. Weeks pass. Kim is running late for work. He's still not used to his new house. Sophie, being sweet, takes care of Kim's little mishaps. She's always keeping an eye on him. They say goodbye, planning to meet later. Kim gets frozen on his way to work. Winter has officially arrived. After the snow stops, fire cases spike because of the dry weather. Carl is upset about some news he has to share. He reminds everyone of the directors of the last documentary they made. Before he can continue his speech, the director of the previous documentary interrupts him. He greets them with a suspicious confidence, as if he knows something they don't. Earlier, Carl had been asking the station chief why they're back. The chief explains that it was part of a favor exchange that let them travel to Thailand. Carl has no choice but to accept it. The team, though reluctant, also has to comply. The director admits they regret their actions from before. This time will be different, he says. He promises that people will see the firefighters as the true heroes they are. But the team isn't convinced. They see Richard again and recall his questionable behavior. It doesn't leave them feeling very optimistic. Later on, the recording director approaches Kim, asking for an interview. Kim declines, saying he needs to recharge his energy. The director smiles knowingly at his response. Richard comments that getting an interview with Kim will be tough this time. He expresses his dissatisfaction with the firefighters. He also reveals his true intentions toward them. Just then, the emergency alarm goes off. The rescue team heads out. It's at one of the tallest towers in the city. When they arrive, they're informed that the 23rd floor is on fire. Evacuations are underway via the emergency stairs, but they need an alternative route. They use the truck's ladder to access the building from the outside. The team moves onto the floor. The director and his cameraman arrive, casually stating the fire won't last long. The firefighters extinguish all the flames as they progress. Once they finish, they discover it was caused by a short circuit in the storage room. Still, Kim senses something's off. The team starts climbing the stairs under the director's orders. Richard doesn't like it, but the director insists on going forward. When they reach the 23rd floor, the room is already extinguished. The director orders them to record the scene. The firefighters object to his inappropriate behavior and demand he turn back. The director heads to another door. Rose shouts for him to stop, but he ignores her and enters, triggering a sudden explosion. This is known as a firefighter's nightmare or a backdraft. It occurs when embers are extinguished due to a lack of oxygen, but opening a door or window causes a rapid dispersal of combustion gases, resulting in an instant explosion. Rose shields the director from the blast. The team ensures his safety. The man claims it wasn't intentional, though his actions were reckless. They're at Chernil Hospital. The doctor informs them that the injuries are severe, and it's unclear when they'll wake from the coma. Kim is furious. His friend is in the hospital because of that man. Meanwhile, the director is whining about trivial matters. The protagonist storms in, unable to contain his anger. He grabs the director and throws him to the ground. Onlookers witness the entire scene and start judging him. The director threatens to ruin his career with a single phone call. Carl steps in, teaching the man a lesson. He updates Kim on his friend's condition and leaves. The director is humiliated, vowing to destroy the firefighters. At the station, Barry asks how things went. Richard brushes it off, saying it was a terrible day. The director calls Richard. He orders him to organize the footage for editing and upload it to YouTube. He seems pleased with the chaos he's caused at the fire station. Richard is shocked by what he sees. The next day at the station, Kim encounters a horde of reporters at the entrance. He hides among the building's columns, noting the tense atmosphere. Kim sneaks in through a back entrance he knows to avoid them. Inside, he finds the team looking tense. They show him a news post defaming him as the worst firefighter in the station, suggesting his actions should be judged. Carl is enraged and wants to take matters into his own hands. Kim tries to calm him, though he's also a bit unsettled. He steps out for fresh air. His friends remind him he's an extraordinary firefighter. Kim appreciates their support but knows it's more complicated than that. While Kim steps out, Carl explores legal options to sue the news outlet. Meanwhile, the video continues to gain attention. The director relishes the chaos, aiming to make Kim quit. Richard, however, isn't on board, but the director forces him to keep defaming Kim. Later, the protagonist walks down the street, reflecting on the news's impact. It's affected him, even if only a little. A week later, the team is back at the station. The protests have lessened but haven't disappeared entirely. Kim tries to ignore the negative comments. While walking down the hall, he hears shouting. It's Richard, and the team wants him out of the station. Seeing Kim, Richard pleads for a moment to talk. They meet to discuss the problem. Richard feels guilty, knowing it's all defamation. He regrets being too cowardly to speak up. The next day, our protagonist continues trying to win over Shi-Si, though he's not succeeding yet. The team brings Kim exciting news. The director has been fired. They ask what Kim did to cause his dismissal. Kim recalls his conversation with Richard. He told him that reporting requires bravery, and even when courage turns into recklessness, the goal remains the same. The well-being of everyone, even if many don't appreciate it. There are still those who do. Kim can live with that because he knows who he really is. He told Richard to do whatever he wanted as a reporter. The team is thrilled about the director's firing. Carl wonders what will happen to the article they published. Kim reassures him it's not relevant. He knows there are other, more positive articles about him. Sometime later, the protagonist is in a doctor's office. He's diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. The doctor asks about any difficult past moments. Kim denies having any. The doctor insists that even minor situations are worth mentioning. Kim recalls a couple of things but doesn't consider them significant. Sophie waits for Kim. When she sees him, she asks about the diagnosis. Kim assures her it's just stress and nothing to worry about. Later, at the station, Rose returns from recovery. The team is excited. She's been discharged from the hospital. Even Shi-Si is happy about Rose's return, and Kim sheds tears of envy. Just then, the alarm goes off. The team rushes out. Carl requests the situation report. They're informed it's a rescue operation for someone attempting to take their own life. The situation is tense. It's a young man overwhelmed by everything, hating everyone. His father pleads for him not to do anything drastic. The firefighters act immediately upon arrival. They split up and set up a safety mattress. Carl and Kim head to the scene. Kim separates from his mentor, heading to the second floor. When Carl arrives, he tries to stop the young man. He attempts to convince him that it's a decision he'll instantly regret. The young man, frightened and confused, slips and falls. Panic spreads as everyone sees the scene unfold. The mattress isn't fully inflated. Kim, standing at a second-floor window, doesn't hesitate. He jumps, catching the young man and cushioning his fall. Kim asks if he's okay. The young man despises himself so much he feels utterly alone. At home, the protagonist wakes from a nightmare. He can't stop thinking about that person. He doesn't understand these feelings. One night, the same young man is on his way to carry out a disturbing mission. He's completely lost emotionally and rationally. He doesn't want to belong in this world anymore. He believes if they wouldn't let him leave alone, he'll drag them down with him. Another night, the protagonist is walking along the sidewalk. He's frustrated about another sleepless night. To distract himself, he decides to exercise. Even at that hour, there are still people around. Kim receives a call from his mentor. Despite being off duty, they've been summoned for a major fire. The disaster is at the marketplace. Reporters are already covering the story. The firefighters realize it's a massive blaze. Finding a way in will be tough. Kim gets frustrated. He can't recall this fire, no matter how hard he tries. He remembers all the other scenarios. There's always a pattern, even with slight changes. But this is something new. The team realizes the fire was a planned act. Kim catches sight of the perpetrator. It's the same person who tried to take his own life. Kim immediately runs toward him. The team doesn't understand what Kim saw. Now he gets it. While running, Kim blames himself for changing the past. The system alerts him about 32 people to save in this fire. Kim plunges into the fiery chaos. He uses his skills to climb safely. He's momentarily distracted by the heat. Pile of debris falls. He dodges it and pushes forward. Meanwhile, the team battles the fire with hoses. They can't believe how reckless their friend is. Carl notices a glowing shadow in the flames. It's Kim, carrying a woman in his arms. He hands her off to them. Before they can stop him, he goes back for more people. Carl tries to stop him, not wanting Kim to risk himself further. Kim refuses to let anyone die. He couldn't forgive himself if they did. He heads back into the inferno, ignoring his mentor's protests. Elsewhere, the culprit revels in the destruction he's caused. But his joy is interrupted. Kim reaches the rooftop, severely injured. Earlier, Carl was spraying water when he saw a vulnerable woman in the flames. He hesitated, weighing the risks. Kim, without a second thought, rushed past him to rescue her. The team watches Kim's incredible feats. The protagonist's only goal is to save everyone, no matter the danger. Carl keeps insisting he's overdoing it. Kim knows there's one more person to save. Back on the rooftop, the culprit is shocked to see Kim there. He threatens to burn Kim too, but before he can act, Kim subdues him. He grabs him forcefully and heads back to the others. The young man doesn't want to be saved, but Kim is determined. He doesn't regret his actions at all. The young man blames everyone for letting him live. He tries to manipulate Kim as they run. He claims everyone treats him like a mentally disabled outcast, especially his parents. Kim reveals he doesn't have parents. Neither can fully understand each other's pain. But Kim says that despite all the bad he's experienced, he's never thought of doing harm. Kim is relieved to see his mentor. He knows everyone is safe. But then he hears something. He turns and sees a gas cylinder about to explode. He throws the young man to the other firefighters. Kim takes the full impact of the blast. All he hears is his friends screaming for medics. It's one of those moments when your whole life flashes before your eyes. He doesn't think he'll survive, but he feels happy knowing he saved everyone. The system informs him it was the final rescue. At the hospital, the doctor informs his colleagues that Kim is in very bad shape. He barely has any skin left, and his lung damage is severe. The doctor says it'll be impossible for Kim to return to being a firefighter. Kim lies resting on the hospital bed, recalling the last place he was in during his previous life. For a moment, he wonders if it was all just a dream, until someone greets him. Kim realizes who it might be in this situation. The protagonist notices it's himself again, asking why he feels this way after saving so many people. Kim responds that no matter how many skills he has, there will always be people who lose their lives. Kim believes that, despite everything, he's useless. The other protagonist smiles. Finally, Kim has understood. He approaches Kim and asks why he wanted to become a firefighter in the first place. The original Kim thinks it's been so long that he doesn't remember why. His vision reminds him of something he can never forget. No matter how small, he'll always remember the real reason. He was rescued from a fire where his parents sacrificed themselves so he could live. The flames kept growing, and the firefighters didn't move forward to protect themselves. From that moment, Kim knew he had lost the most important thing in his life. He was never the same again, going through difficult times. He knows that, at that precise moment, he decided to become a firefighter. He understood that he can't control everything. Sometimes things have to happen that way. Kim's vision reveals what happened to those closest to him after the tragedy. Carl takes responsibility for Kim because he respects him too much to let him be judged. Kim watches him, stunned. Sophie is in the doctor's office, where he asks her personal questions about Kim. She doesn't know how to respond. She hasn't had the confidence to open up to him fully. She's only learned to stay by his side because she loves him. Kim realizes everything happening around him. He cries for the pain he's caused by being blinded by a mission. He understands that he's not alone in this, that people are waiting for him at home, or friends who don't want to see him hurt. He's completed the ultimate mission, saving himself. Sometime later, at the fire station, the guys are gathered as usual, getting ready to visit Kim. Everyone is ready to go. At the hospital, Chris hears the news that Kim has woken up. He can't believe it. He falls to his knees by the protagonist's bed, begging for his well-being. But he finds someone who isn't Kim. An awkward moment unfolds. Kim greets him, looking much better. Chris is thrilled to see him well. The guys arrive and learn that their brave friend has woken up. They admire the protagonist's strength, even in recovery. Kim simply thanks Sophie, crediting her for all the care. Another awkward moment arises, but this time it's because of the love between these two lovebirds. Mr. Mike is also there, taking credit for funding Kim's treatment. He asks for something in return, that Kim spends time at his daughter's party with her stuffed animals. Kim thanks everyone for their efforts in taking care of him, although he knows the real reason he's fine is because of his abilities. After that last mission, the systems never appeared again. His friends ask for a photo to commemorate the moment. Before they can take it, Carl is interrupted by an emergency call. The team rushes out. Sophie notices Kim is slightly interested in going. She simply tells him he should go. In another scene, they're informed that the incident has 31 people trapped in the company's underground facility. Kim runs to rescue them, but quickly returns, waiting for the chief's orders. The chief is glad to see that Kim has changed a bit. The other Kim watches as the protagonist is improving his behavior. He's finally free to let him be himself. Alright, folks, we've reached the end of the story. I hope you all enjoyed it. Thanks for sticking around until the very end. I'll be back with more stories just for you. If you liked the video, a thumbs up and a nice comment really help me out a ton to keep bringing you more content. That said, take care, and see you later. Bye for now.